Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I am thrilled today to have Gigi Robinson here with me. I'm going to try to list all of her titles because it's quite a few. She's founder of Host of Influence. She's the author of a kid's book about chronic illness. She's a mental health and chronic illness advocate, creator economy educator. She's in public speaking. She's at tons of conferences and doing some fun things. Gigi, did I miss anything?
No, you got it. You got everything. It's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to jumping into your world and all the things that you are doing on a daily basis for your business, but also your brand and your stuff. So just thank you
Yeah.
for being here with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to hop into Host of Influence first and just really get into what you have created here and the origin story of this and what led you down this path to starting Host of Influence.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting that. I actually feel like a lot of the times they don't highlight a lot of that in my podcast because it's not like the newest, shiniest thing. But essentially, it is like a personal branding hub or workshop and series like of coaching programs that I host to help people that might have an online presence build a personal brand and a website. And if they also have a small, like micro presence, I help them strategically plan out their personal brand in order to really, um, catapult their longevity. And the idea for this came because I was trying to get in touch with some creator and they didn't have a website and they didn't have an email. So the only way to get in touch with them was by DMing them. And like they didn't even have the email button on their Instagram profile. And I just remember being like, there's so many people out here that are so stupid. Like they literally don't know anything
I,
about personal branding and all that.
it drives me insane when someone on Instagram like that is a creator doesn't have the email button.
Yeah,
Drives
exactly. It's pretty wild. Um, and so I figured what could I do to help fix that problem? And it came down to two things. It came down to established creators who don't have a website or a personal brand, which means that they're limiting a lot of financial opportunities, such as, public speaking, writing a book, launching their own coaching.
Yep.
And then separately, maybe it's somebody that has a more established career outside of social media, or maybe it's a micro creator who doesn't really understand even what that vision is and also doesn't have a website or a personal brand. It was an opportunity for me to get in there and help other creators
Yeah.
launch that.
I think now more than ever, we're seeing so many people have their own personal brand. Like we hear corporate companies and small businesses and all these different levels of things have their own brand of things. But now you're saying, like, okay, what is the conversation series brand? What is Gigi Robinson's brand? What is host? It's
Mm.
all these different separate things now in terms of what like personal branding has become so massive in the last 4 years, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But people still don't have the education around personal branding. Even if some creators have a website, they might not integrate that into their socials, or they might not make an email list, or any of the things related with
Yes.
establishing and maintaining a personal brand.
And I want to get into the little parts of the branding and just pick your mind and see what are some of the things that you believe are the key elements of impactful storytelling when you are building this person's brand for, the website, for social media. How do you translate all of that together?
Sorry, Zeke is being, I know you said you like him. He is literally climbing over here. He's sit, Zeke. That's okay, thank you. So he can stay there and sit. um, yeah, it comes down to like what kind of story the individual wants to tell. So, for me over the years, it's been about helping women deal with chronic illness, but my purpose has kind of changed over the years and my interests have changed, not for any bad reason, but it's just kind of changed because I evolved and my business evolved. And I think that that's natural. So now I do a lot more of the creator economy stuff and I do public speaking on chronic health issues or on creator economy stuff. So, in terms of impact, I just think it's about what you're passionate about and what you're able to make money on. And I think a lot of people get lost in the sauce where they like are so committed to their brand or their mission
Yeah.
and then they evolve and then they change and then they're not passionate and then they don't make content anymore. And then after that it just kind of all crumbles. But if you can recognize that it's okay to evolve,
Yeah.
that's fine
Yeah.
too.
Well, and I want to hit on this because a little bit ago, you had this LinkedIn post, and I really so agree with it because I've been told for years, I'm like, oh, you need to pick your niche and stick with it. But you were like, nope, you shouldn't feel the need to niche down. I just want to dig into this and get your perspective
Yeah,
further on why you shouldn't.
it's definitely like it's individual. So if somebody wants to, niche down, I'm not going to tell them not to.
Yeah.
If somebody's like, oh, like I'm so like I really want it to be a certain way, and um that's like the only way that they can like commit to making content, that's fine. I also will say that if you're a creator that is like easily distracted, that's another reason for not niching down because it can really be a challenge, I think, to create a variety of different content and not make it look like you're all over the place.
Yep.
So that's the first note, and take it with a grain of salt if you are listening to this. Um, in terms of niching down, the reason why I think it's important to not I'm not saying to not niche down. You can have multiple niches, is what I'm saying. So I don't think it's about getting rid of any sort of like specificity in your content.
Yep.
I think it's about making sure that people can look at your page and understand what the top three things that you do are.
Yeah.
Um, you want people from different audiences to follow your content and you want them to engage with your content. And the reason why that's beneficial is because usually something that you're talking about can apply to somebody that another person knows, even if they're not in your niche. So I've had people from the creator economy stay a part of my LinkedIn network. And then when I made a post about endometriosis and chronic illness at work,
Yeah.
a couple of my creator economy contacts reach out to me and we had like these amazing conversations about it, about like their journeys or their family's journey and how hard that was for them. So I just think it's important and it adds another layer of dimension to a conversation you might be having in a specific area. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about it.
I love it. I love it too because I think it's important to post what you're passionate about, but I also think it's one of those that you don't want to listen to the outside noise of a lot of people saying, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that." Like I'm all about doing what you're passionate about, and if you want to talk about certain things and don't feel the need to have to put yourself in a box in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to go back to hosts of influence and just understand your process of when someone does come in and you're helping them. Do you do an audit of sorts? Like, what is your process in helping these brands or creators kind of shape their story and help them convey it online?
That's a great question because every client's different, but on average, people come to me with like a specific goal in mind of like, I want to create a website or I want to optimize my LinkedIn or I want to understand how to make brand deals work across the board for my two niches that I'm in or my one niche that I'm in. How do I do that? So we'll take a look at a lot of their socials and what exists, and then from there they have to have some kind of inspiration of where they want to go because I mean, I can give my creative input, but at the end of the day, like, I can't put my mark of my personal brand on somebody
Yeah.
else's. So that's important to note. And then we just kind of work together and make sure that they get the content that they need and they develop the stuff that they want to for their brand.
I want to dive into as well. Like, I love the phrase stopping the scroll in this massive digital space that we are in today. Is there a thing? Are there things that you're seeing that are like, okay, this is what people are kind of stopping, are looking at, this is what's working, this is what's getting engagement? Are there pieces there that you're seeing are stopping the scroll on social platforms right now?
Like, I think a lot of it depends on the category.
Okay.
I know we're seeing a lot of lifestyle creators kind of do like part 30, part 17 part storytelling on TikTok,
Yep.
which is helping them grow really fast. We're seeing a lot of at home podcasting, like in bed. Think of like Alex Earl or like
Girl.
Paige DeSorbo. Um, you know, is that going to work for everyone? No. And I think that that is where a lot of people get this idea of like a report comes out saying there's things that are
Yeah.
making people go viral and they think it's a one size fits all, but it's not a one size fits all. And then they try it and then they're upset when, they don't perform like Alex Earl.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's an important thing to note.
I always say in my full-time job, I say I'm like, anytime that we are at an event or a conference of sorts where you're seeing us in person and you actually see people's faces, I'm like, that is a gold mine right now.
Yeah,
Especially like
absolutely.
your posts at when you're on the road and you're at VidCon or whatever it may be, like people eat that stuff up. And I think it's
Oh, yeah.
that human personality to it that everybody just is like, yes, we love this.
Yeah. I agree. And I think part of it is because we are so disconnected with social media most of the time that like people just want to see that human element. And when they get it, they, hopefully they feel something. And that's another part of making content that I help people with is it's not just about like sharing your perspective, it's about sharing your perspective on an issue or an industry and then also backing it up with your real life experience, which um, I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
Like a video creator who maybe is like a viral comedy creator.
yeah,
How does that creator jump out and start doing public speaking?
yes,
Right? Um, the first thing that I would do would be making a video about performing comedy in front of people if they jumped to doing that in person. Or, maybe they talk about when they first had their viral video go viral, and then they could talk about how later on they started getting asked to be on panels, and
yeah,
then they started getting asked to be keynotes, and then they started asking or led to like Netflix as a joke, just as an example.
yeah,
Um, and something like that actually did happen with a comedian, which is Hannah Berner. I
yeah.
don't know if you know her.
I love
She's
them.
ridiculously funny. I
Yes,
think she's funny. And she basically did that. She went from like creating viral videos and having a podcast with her friend to doing stand up in person to speaking on panels to doing keynotes and then having her own Netflix special. So that's an example right there. I didn't work with her, but
yeah,
I'm just giving an example
yeah.
of, kind of what could work.
She was just on Call Her Daddy last week, and
Yeah.
I have never laughed harder at an episode of Call Her Daddy before. She is just hysterical. And I love when
So
she talks
funny.
about her husband too. She's like, he's
Yeah.
tired, he doesn't care. And I'm like, I just die laughing every time I hear her talk.
Yeah, it's ridiculously funny.
Yes. I want to hop into you're the author of a children's book about chronic illness. I do just want to hop in and allow you to set the stage and talk about your journey, what got you to be speaking and be a chronic illness advocate from your own personal story.
Yeah, well, from my own personal story, it really comes down to my experiences living with a chronic illness, which were not always the best. When it came to like social
Yeah.
life, um, I think, growing up with a chronic illness that you're not able to see also made it really hard for other young people to see and understand. So in college, when I had teachers that didn't understand, it really made me upset, even though I had all the proper documentation. So I started making art about it. And then after I made art about it, I started writing about it, like for my writing requirements classes and whatnot. And for each art class, usually you have to like give like a self-reported essay on your work to kind of make general people understand if it is more conceptual, which I went to a fine art school, so my art was always conceptual, not necessarily by choice. And I feel like art people will understand that comment. Uh, and after that, in like 2019, I kind of started sharing my story online and going to Facebook support groups. And after that, I just started growing, was in Sports Illustrated Swim Search as the first chronically ill woman to pose in the magazine, which was cool. And then after that, I was like, what am I going to do next? And a friend of mine had done a kid's book, and I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to do one. So I did it. And I'm so happy I did. And it just kind of details my specific journey dealing with chronic illness, which uh, yeah, it's sometimes good and sometimes not as good.
Has there been, and I love the detail in your book too, and it truly it feels not like such a heavy topic because of the format that it's in, and it's so
Mhm.
digestible that way. So I love that it's in this format. So people truly, like you were saying, have an understanding from a young age to even an older age, kind of what that feels like. I love
Yeah.
the perspective you put into it.
Thank you so much. And that's kind of the idea. It's like I want to talk about something heavy and upsetting without making anyone too upset.
What has it been like? I know you've, signed some books, you've done all of that. Have people come up to you and been like, thank you for sharing this? Have they shared their own stories with you? What has that impact been like with you?
Yeah, I mean, some have. I think when you write a book, it's like you are also, and this is going to tie back to everything else I've been talking about, which
Yeah.
is, you know, everything that you do with your personal brand waterfalls into the next thing. It's kind of like a waterfall cavern where it's going down, and then there's another part where it's like chill for a little bit and then it goes to something else. So people that were following me for, whatever reason, like creator economy related, right?
Yeah.
Would see me post about it on LinkedIn and be like, oh my God, my daughter has a chronic illness. Like it's so important, the work that you're doing. I'm like, oh my God. And by the way, could I also interview you about something?
Yeah.
And so it just kind of all like trickles over. And I think that's cool, that it does that. And that's also furthering my point about why personal branding is so important.
You've been on this speaking tour, and I mean, at some pretty cool events and some pretty cool groups of people. First of all, what has that impact been like? Like, what has that speaking tour been like?
It's partly amazing and it's partly exhausting. I do think that speaking is like so much fun and it's really just like one of the best things, in my opinion. It's so fun to get out and to speak in front of people and meet like-minded people and like just be in a new environment. But it is also exhausting to like go out and always like talk with different people and all of that. But that's like, in my opinion, like a boat lift
Yeah,
for the career that I'm able to have for myself. So
I
I
love
don't
it.
mind it at all.
Are you naturally an extroverted person, or are you have some introvert in you where you're like, my social battery is getting low at some of these events? Like, I need to go back to the hotel room and recharge a little
Yeah,
bit.
great question. I think sometimes I'm an introvert,
Okay.
in the sense that I like my alone time, but I do think I can flip my switch on when I need to.
I'm like a little halvesies of both. I'm like I can sit here do this and like feel comfortable, but like I get around a new group of people and I'm like my social anxiety gets up super high and I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I do think that you just have to turn that off in the social media industry.
Yeah,
Like, it's not that easy to turn off, but you definitely are in rooms with new people and sometimes like influencer celebrities, sometimes actual celebrities who are like the faces of a brand. Um, you can be involved and around
yeah,
all interesting kinds of people all the time.
yeah,
So it definitely depends on who you are. Because if you're at an event and all you're doing is like crossing your arms and you're like anxious in a
yeah,
corner, which is like totally valid if that is you or you're like new to the
yeah,
industry, I totally get that. But you do have to put yourself out there. And like every time I'm at an event, I say hi to the people that invited me and I thank them. And I'm like, oh, I took like some content. I'll make sure I send it to you. Even though most of the time, like content is not obligatory, like for your attendance, unless you're getting paid to attend. In that case, it usually is.
yeah.
But I do that because one, I want to keep building a relationship with them, and two, I want to like go back to their events a lot of the time. So I do my best to, you know, talk with them when I can.
I out of habit and sometimes I don't even know it. I do the crossing of the arms, and I'm like, somebody will
Yeah,
be like, Danielle, stop crossing your arms. Like, I didn't even know I did it. Had no idea
yeah,
that I did it.
yeah.
Were you a nat you enjoy speaking, but were you a natural speaker? Did you have to go teach yourself some things? Like, what was that learning curve like for you?
I do think that I like had that skill. I
Okay.
definitely had no problem like getting up in front of people like in
Okay.
college or anything. Um, and I don't know really where that came from.
Okay.
I mean,
Lucky.
I kind of do. I mean, I also think part of it was that I did theater.
Okay. Okay.
So
That makes
yeah, I feel like it all makes sense now.
yes. That makes total sense.
So yeah,
I
that
don't mind it. And I'll get up and do it. I like to practice beforehand, so I was always taught growing up like the looking in the mirror to, you know what I mean, like all those tips and tricks. Um, but it's sometimes where I'll black out and be like, I'll come off and be like, how to go? Because I don't remember a
right.
single thing that I
Yeah,
practiced off.
I get it. I definitely get it.
Did you have in the when you're sitting or standing, are you a pacer? Are you a if you're sitting, are you like crossing your legs? Are you doing something with your hands?
Oh, I'm a hands talker. So if I have a lavalier mic, that's ideal. If I don't have a lavalier mic, I'm talking with one hand like this a lot of the time. Um, you'll see like photos of me where I'm like holding a mic and I'm like, or if I'm like speaking on a stage with a headset or a lavalier, I'll definitely be using my hands and sometimes I'll use my phone. The reason I use my phone sometimes is because sometimes for social audiences like respond
Yeah.
better to
Yeah.
it. I don't know how to fully explain that one, but yeah, it's great though. And I don't know, sometimes I'll be sitting, I'm on a lot of panels,
Okay.
so you know, I don't do too much that's like solo, unless I am specifically asked to.
When sitting in all these cool different spaces, are there things that you're hearing that you're like, oh, God, that's fantastic that you're taking away and translating into your daily work, into helping your host of influence clients, your creator economy, anything like that?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, when I was at, let's just take this Instagram unfiltered concept. It was like two creators and Adam Mosseri all talking, and they were kind of just like riffing, and they were comedy creators. So, like, I get it that that was what they were doing, but they were talking about like myth busting the creator economy. But I don't really think they like answered any questions or did anything that was like so profound. And
Yeah,
furthermore, they do not have any personal branding. And I'm like, wow, so like Instagram is out here choosing people to represent them and speak on their behalf who don't fully have it worked out. That's not that that's a bad thing. It's just something that I am noting. And a lot of brands will do that.
interesting. That is actually very interesting that they chose things like that. Are they saying that it's not like you don't have to be fully branded to be out there and be able to speak it? Like it's interesting what
Yeah,
it's trying to convey.
absolutely. And like sometimes that's like fine.
Yeah.
I don't think that like you have to have it all together, and that creators that brands choose to work with do always have it together. They don't.
Yep.
That's, I think, the point. But there's room for growth, which is also great for me.
That's great for hosts of influence. Gigi, my last question for you is just what inspires you?
What inspires me? That's a great question. I think maybe like my past self, other people dealing with women dealing with health issues, the people in my personal life inspire me. Uh, yeah, just anything where you can make a positive impact
Yeah,
and also like persist through a hard time, I think is really inspirational to me.
very cool. Gigi, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with me and talking with me today. You guys, I'm gonna have all of Gigi's socials linked down below, her podcast, her book, all of it, so you guys can go check it all out. But Gigi, just thank you so much for being here with me today.
Of course, thank you for having me. This was great.
Yeah, and as always, I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, y'all.